Howdy folks, and thanks for tuning in. If you clicked on this video, I'm assuming that you have some concrete that's cracked up and you're interested in trying to repair it the cheapest, easiest, and quickest way possible. Stay tuned. We'll see if we can accomplish that. Now, if you're new here, this is actually a part 2. I've got a crack repair video using dry pour concrete, and we're going to continue on with that. Now, in the last video, I did make some mistakes. There's no doubt about it. Luckily, I had a lot of you lovely people comment and let me know that this is an expansion joint. I didn't know that previously. I do now, but when I bought this house, it was already filled with some concrete patch. It was cracked up and looked real bad, so I just removed that and redid what was already there. Whether or not that's the correct way, I digress. I'm not claiming to be masonry or a concrete genius, whatever you say. But that's what I did. It has been a couple months since I've done that first video, and the dry pour method for crack repair has been working. Is it going to last forever? No, I know that it's not. There's no doubt. But the goal was just to fill the crack in the meantime and make it look a little better than it did. And I think I accomplished that. With that being said, this is not an expansion joint, or at least as far as I can tell. It's just a huge crack in the concrete. The slab has actually shifted some. It looks like it may have fallen off to that side a bit. And this concrete ultimately needs to be replaced. It's in pretty rough shape for what it is, and my only goal is to get a little bit more time out of it before I've got to replace it. We've had this house for about a year now, and it needs some work. There's no doubt. But trying not to spend a whole lot of money all at once. We did have to put a new roof on this house, and it had an above ground swimming pool that was in disrepair, so we replaced that as well. So I've got a lot of money tied up already, and I'm just trying to make small improvements here or there just to try to make it a little bit more livable and enjoyable. So stay tuned. We're gonna try a few suggestions we got from the last video and see what we can do about repairing this crack, at least for the meantime. First things first, we've got to get all this old patch out of the crack here and clean it out the best we can to give the new mortar, not concrete, it's mortar, place to fill in and bind to the old existing concrete here. That was another question / comment that I got a bunch in the last video. Yes, I did use mortar as opposed to regular concrete, and there's a reason for that. The crack, although it is pretty large, concrete has large chunks of aggregate in it, and I wanted to get mortar that didn't have all that, so it would have a better chance of filling down deep into the crack and bonding with the concrete that's already there. Now I'm trying to remove as much inside of this crack that I can. You want to get all this old stuff out, because if you don't, it's not going to give the new mortar very much space to get deep inside and bond with that concrete. So you want to clean it out the best you can. Sometimes it requires just a bit more persuasion. So I'm going to give it all the persuasion it needs. Once you've got all the big chunks out, just go back through, level what is in there out. Maybe dig out, these little rocks, or, just get it cleaned out the best you can. And I do also want to mention, this is not a how-to video. This is a how I am doing this video. If you think this is incorrect, you should definitely not do this way. Don't do this if you don't think that it's the correct way to do it. I'm not showing you how to do something, I'm showing you how I'm doing something. Now, with most or all of the big rocks cleaned out of the area, I'm going to take a blower, just give it a quick little blow off. Alright, the prep work is just about finished. I do want to mention, in the last video that I made, as I said, I made a couple mistakes, and I'm going to do things a bit differently. I'll show you as we go here, but a couple of those things will include, I am going to wet the inside of the crack before I start putting the mortar mix in. I feel like the moisture from below, accompanied with the moisture from above, will get better saturation into the mortar mix and allow for better bonding. So I am going to do that. Also, this other area here, I put the mortar mix down into the crack, but then also I assumed that it would bond to the top side of the concrete here for a seamless transition. And I didn't do any kind of scuffing or sanding work on top of the existing concrete, and there are some areas that it's starting to chip off over here. You know, it's still down inside the crack just fine, but just on the top side it's starting to chip off some. So I am gonna take a scuffy pad or something and scuff up just the edge of the surface here, so we can start to bond on top there. This is the tool that I'm going to use to do that. I'll make a separate video on this if anybody's interested. This is a fantastic little sander. It's a oscillating sander, and you just pull the trigger. There are different settings on the back side. You can obviously amp up the power there. So, fantastic little tool. We're going to see how this works for us. Yep, seems like that's going to work out just fine. Whether or not the sanding's actually effective, I have no idea. But I do want to give it the best possible chance of working that I can. So I'm going to give it a shot. One thing that I will have to do is create a barrier here at the edge of the concrete. The crack goes all the way through and terminates at the edge there. So I'm going to have to figure out some way to keep the concrete in while it's curing. So let's do that. I had a piece of sheet metal laying around that should do the trick just fine. So we've got that placed. Got a little chisel there just holding it up. But again, in the last video I did get a whole lot of great comments. A couple not so great comments. But that's neither here nor there. The good comments I do appreciate. And one of those comments said maybe you should pre-moisten the ground underneath. So I am going to go ahead and do that now. I'm making sure just to get water in the crack itself. I don't want to do the surrounding area just yet. But I do want to get some water down inside the crack. And I'm just using a pump-up sprayer filled with only water. And I'm using that to, again, just moisten the inside of the crack. So it's tough to tell, but there's not a ton of water down there. I'm not saturated by any means, but it is moist. The crack is moist. Now, in my last video, I used this trowel. I scooped mortar mix out, and I put it in the crack. And there were a couple comments saying that that seemed like the hard way to do it. And I agree, I'd never done it before. So one commenter thank you very much, said, why don't you scoop out the mortar, place it on the ground next to your crack, and then just sweep it in. And I thought, you know what, that's kind of brilliant. So that's what I'm going to do now. Now just sweep it into the crack. Sweep it in. And it actually works. That's not too bad. Sweet. Now obviously there is still some finish work involved. You still gotta smooth it over. But sweeping the mortar mix in did allow for a lot of material to go in all at once. So that was pretty sweet. Good idea. Thank you. However, this method also isn't terrible. Just shake it on in there. It's not too bad. Alright, if you watched the last video, you know that it's been filled, it's been troweled, and now it's time for it to be smoothed. We do so with a paint roller. Just real quick on the edges, nothing fancy. Doesn't have to be perfect. Doesn't even have to look great, in my opinion. I don't care all that much. But you can see the roller does a nice job at just kind of feathering things and making it look not as bad. So, yep, we'll continue on with that and come back when it's finished. Alright, it's as smooth as I care to make it, which is, it looks just fine for me. So, now it's time to start the watering process. Again, there is some moisture in the crack already, so it's already started soaking up the moisture from below, but you've got to mist the top. You just give it a light coat, nothing heavy. You don't want to saturate it. You just want a fine mist to get some moisture started. No big heavy droplets. Heavy droplets will displace the mortar and make it look not so good, which again I don't really care all that much about. But you give it a good misting and you stop. You've got to let it sit that way for an hour. After the first hour you come back, you mist it again, let it sit another hour, and then you come back and really start to put the water to it. You start soaking after that point. So, time to wait. Alright, it's only been a couple seconds for you guys, but it has been an hour for me. So I'm going to go ahead and hit it with the mist again. Nothing too heavy, just a nice solid mist. Get the surface wet again. If you hit it too heavy, you can see, I'll show you off to the side here, it kind of displaces the mortar mix there, so nothing too serious, just a mist. And we'll let that sit for another hour. I want to take this time to just thank everybody again for watching the previous video. It's at over 100,000 views now, which is crazy. I never would have expected that. A kitty. So again, just thanks everybody for watching. Everybody that's liked the video, everybody that commented, I do appreciate all of those. Even the thumbs down, those are great too. So just thanks everybody for watching.